It's Christmas time, and we meet a girl named Jules. She wakes her mom up saying, "I heard something on the roof." But Jules's mom doesn't take her seriously and says, "There's no one on the roof." She tucks Jules back into bed, telling her it was probably just a dream, or maybe a bird. Jules insists, "I wasn't dreaming. I'm pretty sure it was Santa Claus." Playing along, her mom says, "Well, maybe it really was Santa." Jules then asks her mom to make her something to eat, and her mom agrees. While she's in the kitchen cooking, she hears noises coming from the roof. Curious, she decides to check it out, but instead of finding anything on the roof, she notices the front door is wide open. Worried, she bolts the door shut, heads back to bed, and snaps at her husband. "You're so careless, leaving the door open like that. You should be more concerned about our family's safety." A few minutes later, Jules wakes up to the sound of someone moving around downstairs. Excited, she thinks it's Santa, so she runs to wake up her brother Timmy. "Timmy, wake up! Santa's here to give us presents!" But Timmy just groans, rolls over, and goes back to sleep. Jules doesn't wait for him. She rushes downstairs, eager to meet Santa, but instead of Santa, she finds Art the clown. She immediately feels uneasy and hides behind the door. Art pulls a huge axe out of his bag and starts heading upstairs. Jules watches in horror as he enters Timmy's room and brutally hacks him to pieces. Jules hears the horrifying sounds of the axe tearing through her brother but is frozen in place, unable to move. Art leaves Timmy's room, his axe dripping with blood, and heads to the parents' bedroom. He wastes no time attacking Jules' dad and killing him instantly. Her mom wakes up to the gruesome sight of her husband being slaughtered in front of her. She screams as Art decapitates him. Panicking, she tries to lock herself in the bedroom, but Art smashes through the door. Desperate to find Jules, she runs to Timmy's room, only to find his mutilated body. Ed chases her downstairs as she tries to unlock the front door to escape, but she doesn't make it. He catches her, dismembers her, and leaves her lifeless body in pieces. Afterward, he sits down to eat the food Jules's mom had prepared, thinking he's finished off the entire family. But then he hears movement coming from the kitchen cabinets. He opens one to find Jules hiding inside. Without hesitation, he kills her too, mercilessly. The scene flashes back 5 years earlier to a theme park. A police officer is investigating after Sienna had beheaded Art. The officer examines Art's decapitated body and calls for backup. As he searches the area, Art's headless corpse suddenly rises and strangles him. The officer fires his gun, but it doesn't affect Art. In the next scene, we see Art on a subway attaching the officer's severed head to his own body. The story shifts to a hospital where Vicky is confined. A receptionist named Park hears screams from one of the rooms. He radios security and then goes to check it out. To his shock, he finds Vicky and Art's decapitated head eating a nurse's organs. Frozen in horror, Park turns to see Art's headless body nearby. Before he can react, Vicky attacks him, shoving her hands into his mouth while Art's body rips off his face and kills him. Art retrieves his head, puts it back on, grabs Vicky, and drags her onto a subway. Later, a man dressed as Art for Halloween spots them and assumes they're just really committed to their costumes. Laughing, he says, "Wow, you guys look amazing. The blood looks so real. I was thinking of adding fake blood to my outfit too." He takes a photo with them, oblivious to the danger. Art and Vicky share a sinister smile before killing him. Art then steals the man's clean costume, since it's not covered in blood. Back home, Vicky looks at herself in the mirror, spiraling into madness. Enraged by her appearance, she shatters the mirror, grabs a shard of glass, and slits her wrists while sitting in the bathtub. Meanwhile, Art relaxes in a rocking chair. The scene shifts again, introducing a man named Ray, who arrives at the asylum to pick up Sienna. She's his niece, and Ray plans to take her home to live with him. When they arrive at the house, Gabby, Ray's daughter, greets Sienna with a hug. Sienna lights up when she sees her, saying, "Wow, you've grown so much since the last time I saw you." Gabby smiles and says, "Don't leave us again. Stay here and live with us." Sienna then meets her uncle's wife, Jessica, before Gabby takes her upstairs to show her her room. The room is decorated with dragon and witch-themed posters and knickknacks, showing Gabby's love for fantasy stories. Sienna is amazed and compliments the room, clearly impressed. Gabby hands her a letter she wrote for Christmas, where she wishes for them to have a great time together. Meanwhile, 2 inspectors arrive at Art's house. They're there to check the property because the state plans to seize and sell it, believing it to be abandoned. One of them, Spencer, jumps when he spots a few rats, but his partner, Jackson, calms him down, saying there's nothing to worry about. Spencer shakes his head, uneasy. I don't know. This place gives me the creeps. It feels like something evil is just waiting for the right moment to come out. Jackson laughs it off. You can't seriously believe all those ghost stories about this house. Curious, Spencer asks about the stories, and Jackson shares a true crime tale from the 90s about a deranged man who kidnapped 10 children, killed them, and buried their bodies in the yard. Ever since, rumors have spread that the house is haunted by evil spirits. Spencer isn't convinced and thinks Jackson is just messing with him. Back at her new home, Sienna is unpacking her things when she comes across an old photo of herself with her father, who passed away years ago. She reminisces about the times he used to write fantasy stories. Sienna had once asked him to include strong female characters, since he always wrote about heroic boys. Her father had promised that after finishing his current story, he'd write one just for her, about a powerful girl. Remembering this makes Sienna smile. Meanwhile, Gabby is snooping through Sienna's journal and finds an entry about the time she was at the cafe and encountered Art the Clown. Sienna snatches the journal back, telling Gabby not to read it again. Gabby, confused by Sienna's reaction, asks about the cafe. Sienna looks uncomfortable and says, I don't want to talk about it. The scene shifts back to Art's house, where Spencer is exploring the upstairs. He stumbles upon Art sitting motionless in a chair, shocked. He calls for Jackson, but Jackson doesn't hear him because he's in the bathtub. There, Jackson finds Vicky's corpse in the bathtub. Disgusted, he pulls out his phone to take a picture, but before he can, Vicky suddenly moves and stabs him with a shard of glass, killing him. Back upstairs, Spencer gathers his courage and approaches Art. At first, Art seems frozen, unmoving. Then, without warning, he grabs Spencer by the face, flings him across the room, stretches and shakes off the cobwebs clinging to him. Art pins Spencer down, splits him in the hand with a metal rod, and then pulls out a knife to split Spencer's head in half. The story returns to Sienna, who is having lunch with her new family. Out of nowhere, she has a vision of her dead friend Rose sitting across the table, accusing her. I died because of you, Rose says bitterly. You brought me to Art. It's your fault I'm dead. Jessica notices Sienna looking distressed and asks if she's okay. Sienna forces a smile and says, I'm fine. But Rose isn't done. Your medication won't stop me from appearing whenever I want, she taunts. Sienna struggles to act normal but can't take it anymore. She excuses herself and leaves the table. The scene shifts to Sienna's younger brother, John, who now lives in a boarding school. He walks into one of the rooms and sees two of his classmates making out. One of them, a girl named Maya, notices him and greets him warmly. It turns out John has become somewhat famous as the boy who survived Art the Clown. Maya is clearly impressed by him, admiring his strength and courage for escaping Art's clutches. She tells him, "You're a legend," and also says, "Me and Cole are running a podcast and recording episodes about crime stories, and we wanted you to join us and share your story about Art." But John refuses because his experience with Art is the worst thing that's ever happened to him, and he doesn't want to remember those memories. Mia insists, trying to convince him, but John says, "I'll think about it." Then Sienna calls John and tells him she's out of the facility and now staying with her Uncle Ray. Sienna and John have missed each other so much. It had been 5 years since they'd last seen each other. Sienna invites him to come spend time with them during Christmas, and John agrees. Meanwhile, Art is working on a new weapon, a device shaped like a tube that releases freezing air capable of solidifying anything. He tests it on a rat, freezing it completely, and he's thrilled that the device works. Then, he shatters the rat into pieces. As Art walks past a bar, he's excited to see someone dressed as Santa Claus, because he's always wanted to wear a Santa outfit while committing his crimes. He decides to enter the bar and greet Santa, happy to see him in person. Art even checks to see if Santa's beard is real. The bartender notices the black bag Art is carrying and asks what's inside. Art pulls out a whistle and starts blowing it repeatedly. The bartender orders him to stop, but Santa is amused and asks Art to sit with them. Art happily joins, puts on a Santa hat, and they all get ready to drink. The bartender asks Art for ID, so Art pulls out a card with the name Jackson on it. It turns out to be the ID of the supervisor Art had killed. While they're drinking, Art spits his drink onto Santa, saying he doesn't like it. Santa gets mad, takes back his Santa hat, shoves Art and tells him to leave. The bartender is also annoyed, shoves Art and throws his black bag at him, telling him to get out. Art doesn't let this slide. He pulls a gun out of the black bag, shoots the bartender, kills another person sitting with him, and then approaches Santa to kill him too. Santa begs for his life, apologizing and pleading for mercy, but Art ties him to a chair instead. He takes Santa's outfit and puts it on himself. Then, using his freezing device, Art freezes Santa's hands and feet, smashes them with a hammer, and tortures him while clearly enjoying it. Finally, he freezes Santa's entire body and smashes his face with the hammer. Back in her uncle's house, Sienna is sitting with Jessica, her uncle's wife. Jessica notices Sienna is nervous and reassures her, saying everything will be okay. Sienna says, "You remind me of my mom before my dad died. My mom was so calm and supportive." Later, Jessica talks to Ray. He's concerned that it's too soon for Sienna to be living with them, thinking she might need more time to adjust after leaving the facility. Jessica tells him, "Sienna's doing better now, taking her medications. With time, she'll get back to normal." The next day, Sienna and Gabby head to the mall to buy some things. While they're shopping, Sienna sees a man dressed as Santa walking past the store and waving at her. His hand is covered in blood. She immediately feels it's Art, but he walks away before she can react. Elsewhere, John is at home watching Mia's podcast, where she talks about Art the Clown. Sienna calls him and asks to meet. When they meet, she invites him to come over that night to her Uncle Ray's house, saying we don't have to wait for Christmas to hang out together. But John says, "I can't tonight. I have a college party I have to attend." While they're talking, John's friend Cole joins them, excited to meet Sienna because he's heard so much about her. Mia also joins, happy to see Sienna, and asks her to do an interview for the podcast, saying she wants Sienna to talk about her experience with Art. Sienna refuses, saying, "Every day, I see visions of my friends and family who died. That clown ruined my life. I don't want to talk about it." When Mia insists, Sienna loses her temper and storms off. John talks to Sienna privately and asks, "Why did you snap at Mia like that?" Sienna tells him, "I saw Art today." John doesn't believe her and says, "That's impossible. You cut off his head. There's no way he's alive." Sienna responds, "I don't know how, but I'm sure it was him. He was dressed as Santa." John still doesn't believe her, thinking she's imagining things. Sienna insists, "We need to kill Vicky because she's not human anymore. She's become a demon. While I was in the facility, she sent me messages saying demons possess the souls of the dead. But they don't pick just anyone. They choose evil people, like Art. That's how he's alive again. He's not human anymore. He's a demon. I think my dad made that magic sword so I'd be ready for this moment, to kill Vicky and Art." John starts to worry, but he still doesn't fully believe her. Meanwhile, Art replaces the real Santa at a children's event. He sits down, pretending to be Santa, and waves at the kids, handing out gifts. A store employee notices something's off, realizing that this isn't the same Santa as before. He confronts Art and tells him to leave. Art leaves, but not before handing one child a gift: a bomb. The bomb explodes moments later, killing 11 people. When Sienna sees the news about the mall explosion, she's horrified, realizing it's the same mall she and Gabby visited earlier. She tells her family, "Art did this. I saw him today. He's coming for us." Ray tries to calm her down and calls John, saying, "Your sister's worried about you. I'll come pick you up and bring you here so you're not alone." Sienna takes the phone from Ray and explains to John that Art is alive. John gets anxious and agrees to come over to their house. Ray starts getting dressed and ready to go pick up John, but Jessica tells him, "I gave Sienna a sedative to help her sleep. You might have been right. Sienna probably should have stayed in the facility a little longer for her own good. We'll talk about it when you get back." Meanwhile, at John's college, Art sneaks into the bathroom. At that moment, Cole and Mia are playing bride and groom in the bathroom. Art smashes the glass, breaks in, and starts attacking them with a chainsaw, yelling at them to stop their filth. He cuts off Cole's legs and shows his severed eyeball to Mia, just as she had wanted to see, before mutilating her face and finishing her off. Then he turns back to Cole and gruesomely dismembers him as well. Ray arrives at the college to pick up John and calls him to let him know he's outside. John replies, "I'm on my way, but it turns out it wasn't John talking to Ray, it was Art impersonating him. At the same time, Sienna has a dream about her father. In the dream, he shows her a picture of a superhero dressed as a warrior holding a sword. He tells her, with this sword, you can kill any evil person. Afterwards, Sienna starts having nightmares, wakes up suddenly, and hears noises downstairs. She assumes John has arrived, but when she goes down, she gets the shock of her life. She sees Vicky wearing a mask resembling Art's face, while Art has already killed Ray, skinned him, and hung his body on the wall. Sienna tries to run, but Art catches her, beats her, and throws her to the ground. He hits her on the head, knocking her unconscious. When she regains consciousness, she finds herself tied to a chair, and Jessica is tied up in front of her. Vicky is filming them both, along with Art. Ray's severed head is hanging as a gruesome decoration on the Christmas tree. Vicky removes the tape from Jessica's mouth. Jessica, distraught, asks, "What did you do to my daughter?" Art reveals Gabby's severed head, throwing Jessica into hysterics. She screams and can't believe her eyes. In her despair, she spits in Vicky's face. Enraged, Vicky decides to punish her. She ties Jessica more tightly, and Art shoves a large bottle into Jessica's mouth, forcing 3 live rats into it. Jessica ends up swallowing the rats, and finally, Art kills her with a knife. Vicky then removes the tape from Sienna's mouth and tells her, "I'm going to torture you before I kill you." Art enters the scene holding Gabby, who is sobbing at the sight of her mother's corpse. Then Art pulls out John's skull. Vicky tells Sienna, "All these people died because of you. You led us to them." Sienna breaks down and screams, "I'm going to kill you!" Vicky smirks and replies, "You don't stand a chance." Gabby tells Sienna, "I wanted you to open the gift I brought you." Vicky, intrigued, grabs the gift and gives it to Sienna. Art allows her to open it. Inside, Sienna finds her father's magical sword. She is overjoyed, grabs the sword, and uses it to stab Art. She then throws it at Vicky and decapitates her, separating her head from her body. Gabby runs to hug Sienna, and it's revealed that Gabby knew about the sword because she had read Sienna's father's journal. That's why Gabby decided to retrieve the sword and give it to Sienna as a gift. But then it's revealed that Art isn't actually dead yet. He tries to attack Sienna with the chainsaw, but she deflects his strike with the sword. Art injures Gabby, knocking her to the ground, while Sienna manages to wound Art in the leg. Their battle continues with their weapons flying out of their hands. Art smashes Sienna's face into Ray's corpse and chokes her while repeatedly striking her. In a last effort, Sienna grabs the sword and stabs Art with it. Suddenly, a portal to the underworld opens, and Gabby falls into it, barely managing to cling to the edge. Sienna abandons Art to try to pull Gabby back, but she isn't strong enough, and Gabby falls into the underworld. The portal closes, and Sienna notices that Art's body has disappeared. It's revealed that Art isn't dead yet. Sienna looks at the wounds on her hands and notices they're healing. Meanwhile, Art is seen sitting at a distant bus stop, waiting. He boards a bus, ready to start a new wave of his crimes. And that marks the end of the Terrifier movie series. Don't forget to like this video and